Shalom. Welcome back to the Hebrew Heritage Channel. Today we're going to be in Genesis chapter 4, and we'll be introduced to Cain and Abel and also the descendants of Cain. So go ahead, grab your Bibles to follow along, and let's get started. Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. And Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from Yahweh. And she again bare his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto Yahweh. And Abel he also brought of the firstling of his flock and of the fat thereof. And Yahweh had respect unto Abel and to his offering. But unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. So Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel were the first family on earth. But Cain and Abel weren't the only children Adam and Eve had. These two were part of a bigger story, so their names are the ones mentioned because of this. Yahweh respected Abel's offering, which was an animal and the fat of the animal. Cain's offering of vegetation wasn't respected by Yahweh because blood had to be shed in order for the offering to be respected. As the saying goes, you can't get blood from a turnip. In last week's video, we learned how an animal had to be killed so Yahweh could make coats of skin to cover the nakedness of Adam and Eve after they ate of the tree in the Garden of Eden. It looks like Abel may have picked up on his parents' situation in the garden, allowing him to understand what kind of offering Yahweh requires. This was mentioned in last week's lesson. If you haven't watched it, I recommend you do so. Each lesson builds on top of each other. So, as we go through the Bible, book by book, chapter by chapter, verse by verse, the Bible will make more sense if you watch the videos in order. The Bible is one continuous story, and people tend to read the Bible by jumping around, starting in the middle of the book, never reading from the beginning. Now, you can jump around when you have great understanding, but when you're learning, it's best to start in Genesis and work your way through, just like you would any other book. If you haven't listened to my previous videos, after you finish this lesson, go back, listen to the previous videos. That way, when you come back next week, you'll have better understanding. And that's why we're here. We're here to learn the Bible and understand the Bible. So why not go back and get that foundation? All right, family, let's continue. Verse 6. And Yahweh said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shall thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. So these verses can be confusing. What it's saying is, if you sin, there is a sin sacrifice you can give to Yahweh, just like Abel did. Cain is a man of the world. He didn't know the proper sacrifice to bring. Abel is a man of the spirit. He knew the correct way to be forgiven. And Cain talked with Abel, his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and slew him. Now, this is the first murder on earth. Verse 9. And Yahweh said unto Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. Where is the love in Cain's response? He acted like he didn't care about his brother, and he lied, acting as if he didn't know what happened to Abel. Again, this was the first murder in the Bible. Let's reference John chapter 8, verse 44 to gain a little more understanding about this verse. John chapter 8, verse 44. Ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. So what this is saying is, the devil is a murderer from the beginning, and he incited Cain to kill his brother Abel. Okay, let's head back to Genesis chapter 4, and we'll pick back up in verse 10. And he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. And Cain said unto Yahweh, My punishment is greater than I can bear. Blood is the life of all flesh. We can't hear blood, but Yahweh can hear blood, especially innocent blood. Verse 14. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, and it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. And Yahweh said unto him, Therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And Yahweh set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. Who would find Cain and slay him? Cain said, Everyone shall slay him, meaning there are more people on the earth than Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel before he passed away. Adam and Eve had to have more children. Again, this is a story being told, so you don't hear about the other children, but they do exist. So Cain was worried about his brothers and his sisters taking him out for what he did to Abel. Verse 16. And Cain went out from the presence of Yahweh and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. The land of Nod's exact location is unknown. We do know it's outside of the Garden of Eden to the east, and the meaning of Nod means wanderer, exile, and fugitive. Let's continue. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived, and bare Enoch. And he builded a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. So Cain knew his wife, who was his sister, and we know that it had to be his sister because at the time, Adam and Eve were the only ones procreating, and they had to do this to populate the earth at that time. And after the flood, it happened again when Abraham married his wife Sarai, and that was his sister. And the same for Noah's boys, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. They had to procreate with their siblings as well to populate the earth. Enoch was born to Cain and named a city after him, calling it Enoch. This was the first civilization before the flood. Verse 18. And unto Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begat Mehuel, and Mehuel begat Methusael, and Methusael begat Lamech. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of the one was Adah, and the name of the other Zillah. This is polygamy here. Let's continue. Verse 20. And Ada bare Jabal. He was the father of such as dwell in tents, and of such as have cattle. And his brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ. And Zillah, she also bare Tubal Cain, an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron. And the sister of Tubal Cain was Naamah. And Lamech said unto his wives, Ada and Zillah, Hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech, hearken unto my speech, for I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70 and sevenfold. So Lamech inherited Cain's violence and had a lust for revenge. This verse means that Lamech would make sure anyone who wronged him was paid back. And as you can see, a couple of men had to die, and Lamech feels justified in doing this because he's protecting himself because the men were trying to kill him. Verse 25. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. For Elohim said, She hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. And to Seth, to him also, there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then began man to call upon the name of Yahweh. Adam and Eve had Seth, and Seth had Enos. And it says that man begins to call upon Yahweh. And there's a reason for this. Yahweh used to speak freely to Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel. But after Cain, he stopped speaking to man for a really long time. The last person to hear Yahweh's voice was Cain, until he spoke to Noah. This is why it says in verse 26 that man began to call upon the name of Yahweh, because they wanted to talk to him. But these men had all died before Yahweh started talking to man again. All right, family. Next time we'll pick up in Genesis chapter 5, and we'll learn about the descendants of Adam. And again, if you haven't done so, please go back and watch my previous videos so you can get a foundation of what we've been talking about. All right, family, until next time, be blessed.